really quiet. You guys can talk while we're waiting for everyone to come. I guess I should say that. Some of you might not know that. This is casual. If you want to chat while we're waiting, have at it. Tell me about your day. Tell me what you're eating.
I'm still getting my headphone situation figured out.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi, Courtney. I had a late breakfast, so I'm not eating lunch. I'm just learning right now.
My favorite thing to do now is to have like a little charcuterie board. Well, plate.
Mine too. I had a boiled egg.
I did it the last one. I was like, that was so nice and easy. And that way, like, when I get snackish while we're talking, I just like pop a little piece in my mouth.
That's a good idea.
Lizzie said I would come off mute, but you would be hearing my husband yapping on the call next to me. But hi, everyone.
Hi, Leslie.
Rebecca, what's up?
Hey, sorry, I was trying to wave, not put my hand up. I'm actually on my mobile on the call in the car. I've just done the school run, so I might hop off and just listen. So, but I just wanted to say hi.
Hi, all good. We're all come as you are here.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, I think we're gonna maybe get started. Okay, well, we're all here to talk about threads, and we have two great guest speakers. Caroline, is it Caroline or Carolyn?
Caroline.
Caroline and Sean. We'll let them introduce themselves and then give us their spiels. They both have prepared for this, and I'm so thankful. I really appreciate you guys being here. And all of you that have come, I'm also really glad that you're here today as well. It's always nice to have a room full of people. We will take questions at the end, but we'll also take questions at the end of each of their chats. Please do raise your hand or throw it in the chat box. Also, feel free to drop your info in the chat box as well if you want to. If you want to try and connect with other people on the call, totally fine. I just ask that nobody tries to sell anything. I don't think we've ever had that problem, but I have seen it happen. Caroline, tell us about you. I'm going to pin you to the screen. And tell us about you and your background, and then let us hear some thoughts. Let us learn about thread.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline, and I am a sample maker, and I specialize in working with pattern makers to go from 2D to IRL and bring the samples to life. And so I was thinking about thread and just decided to narrow it down by some threads that I have been working with this year that I think are interesting. Talking about denim, something we're all familiar with. I can't the sample that I was actually working on, but I just have some other jeans here, and I think that this is like a noticeable place where the consumer is noticing the thread, like as part of the design, and also somewhere where we might be thinking more about thread as part of the development process. And so I think a common thread that is used for denim is when the core of it is polyester and then it's wrapped in cotton. And I think that's it's an interesting combination of materials because the cotton takes dyes better than the polyester, and it also resists the heat that is produced by friction from sewing. And then the polyester gives it strength and resistance to mold. So another type of thread is for embroidery machines. I used to work in a uniform company where we did a lot of name strips like this that we sewed onto shirts for uniforms. This is my dog's name that I just did as an example. But this is interesting to me because the bobbins are pre-wound and they're always white thread, and so this is like something that companies sell. They're made of cardboard, and this thread is really thin. It's a polyester specially designed for embroidery, so it helps like switch between different colors on the embroidery machine. It helps with the tension, the stitching, so that you can get sort of this like nice raised effect. So that's kind of a different one.
I have a question really quick. Actually, it's not really a question, it's just like a comment. So like, I'm a total thread newbie, and like obviously I use thread. I worked in fashion, like I know what thread is, but like I'm gonna call you a thread scientist. I'm not a thread scientist. So I just recently learned that like it's super common to have a different like regular thread and a bobbin thread. Like when I sew at home, I usually just wind the bobbin with the same thread I'm using, and I guess like I thought that was like what everyone did. that I literally just learned that people use like completely different threads on the top and bottom. Like not just different colors, but like completely different, like what you just said.
Yeah, it is going to create different factors for how you want it to look on the top versus the back. And I'm sure Sean knows more about like the machinery side of specifically like is happening with the machine, that you want to control different factors to make sure the fabric and the seam is behaving in the way that you want. But all of these different factors are going to contribute to how the garment looks and functions.
Yeah, I think what Caroline was pointing out with the bobbin thread on the embroidery machine being a lot thinner is you don't want to have a whole lot of bulk coming through there. So it looks nice and flat on the back side of it, if you want to show that sample again. So because you don't want that getting really bulky, especially when you have a name tag like that sewn on. And then you have a really, I guess, a standard size thread on the needle that gives it that volume and that that dimension to it. But embroidery is a little bit different than what we traditionally do when it comes to sewing, because you have so many dense stitches per inch there.
Thanks for jumping in on that, Sean.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to leave you pinned since you guys are both chatting today. So feel free to talk back and forth as well. Continue, Caroline.
I saw that someone submitted a question about organic cotton threads. I have a couple here that I purchased online. This white one, I was doing a project where I wanted to dye the garment after I had sewn it together. So if you're designing something that, depending on what materials you're using, and it's going to be garment dyed, that's going to be something important to think about, is what the thread is made out of, and how that's going to take the dyes, and what kind of result you're going for. This thread is, I only use it for hand sewing because it breaks really easily. So there's definitely a lot of different types of quality out there, and sometimes ordering online, you don't know what you're going to get. So I'm slowly working through this, just hand sewing projects at home. This is another one that this Scanfill brand has been a really good quality that I can use on my industrial sewing machine. So this is like so yummy. It's got a wooden spool and organic cotton. I think it's just beautiful. I can't remember the exact question about the organic cotton thread. Do you know about any good brands?
Let me grab that really quick. So it said, for brands looking for a natural fiber or organic thread, is there a brand that you like and recommend? So is that one that you would recommend?
This I've had, I've seen you can get cones like this, so more of a bulk amount from this brand too. I've had a good experience with it.
And can you tell me the brand name again, just so we can grab it for anyone who's interested?
Yeah, Scanfill, Scanfil.
Thank you. And then another question was about biodegradable threads.
So that would be the cotton. The cotton would be biodegradable. I think I want to touch on what Caroline showed, the two different samples, the one you were hand sewing with. If you could show that, you see how hairy that looks? And compared to the gold one that you have, which looks a lot smoother and more uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So the white one is, of course, going to pick up more dye if you do over dye it, because the fibers are a lot looser, but they're a lot shorter too. And I think that's why it's so weak when it comes to putting it on a sewing machine. So, like you said, it's a mixed bag when you buy online. But some of the stuff that I normally work with is A&E, which is American and Efert,
Mm-hmm.
Champion thread, and then Coats. A&E has a Airy Cot, which is 100% organic, long staple cotton thread. Champion has their Champ Cot, pretty much the same blend there. And then Coats has their Coats. It's a sustainable cotton. I have no idea how to pronounce it. It's TRECERCHI. Yeah. That was the Coats was kind of new to me the last few months. Someone came to me with a garment dye project, and especially when you're garment dyeing, you don't want your thread to remain the same color or get dyed a different color. Or you're gonna have a nice, red shirt with like a greenish thread to it. So that never looks good unless you want that.
For Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There was a question in the chat. There's actually a couple, but the one that I want to talk about right now is like thread size. So as you were pulling those two up, I don't know if it's just because the white is like easier to see, but it looks like the gold one is actually thinner than the white one. Is that true?
I don't have so size is interesting. There's different systems for, I think, the for measuring the thread, but I think the text number is the most helpful. I don't have it labeled on these. But
is that something that you think about when you're purchasing one? Like, do you look in the description for like the text size or anything, or like?
Yes, I do. So this is like a bulk thread that I was purchasing to have in stock for sample making, and this is a text 30, so I'm going to be able to use this for a lot of different applications. And this is the A&E brand that Sean was just mentioning. So this is like a good basic that I can use in lots of different applications.
Nice. Sean, anything you want to add to that?
No, the A&E is incredibly consistent. I'll say that. I'm sure you've experienced that. Yeah, the text size, if anyone's not familiar with it, normally it's what is it? It's a T and then a number, and that number is the weight in grams for 1,000 meters of the thread. Really confusing when you start getting into very heavy fibers, but normally my background's in knitwear, so I kind of stay within the 12 to about 36 text range, so fairly light. A good example for denim and jeans, Caroline's probably using a text 60 around that. Yeah, so that just kind of gives you a good visual.
Something like this, where you want visible top stitching, is going to be different than, or a higher text number than this, where it's sort of blending in.
Yes. Somebody in the chat said biodegradable thread options with Cyclo. A&E uses Cyclo technology and some of the products to offer biodegradable thread options that reduce microfiber pollution.
Yeah, hey Courtney, I can speak to that. This is Courtney from Burr. Sorry, I don't have my video on. Hey, yeah, so actually it's pronounced Cyclo, CICLO. It's an additive that is put into the process at the spinning stage, at the melt spinning stage, and so it actually acts as little microbes that eat away to the polyester. It also has nylon options, but both of them they're biodegradable. I don't know how widely they're available now commercially, if it's available at what stock stage, but A&E has a partnership with them right now. So we use them at the fabric stage. Yeah, and it works really well.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
So cool.
There was another question in the chat. I just want to round back to it. It was about embroidery. So what is the difference between using rayon versus polyester thread for embroidery? Is it just color fastness, or are there any other factors?
Color fastness and probably price. most of it. It has been a very long time since I've costed out thread for embroidery. So I don't really know what the price difference is right now, but I remember probably 12 years ago that there was a considerable price difference there. Rayon was a little bit cheaper.
Rayon was cheaper.
Hmm.
I would have thought it would be the opposite. Does anybody else have any like thoughts on that? Gallery can speak up if you want to as well.
It also could have been the fabric, the thread supplier that we were going with too. Maybe they just had a sale on it. But we normally stuck with about 2 different thread suppliers at that time. We didn't really try to source it out or, you know, look for the cheapest price or a sale anywhere.
Caroline, when you're doing embroidery, what types of threads do you typically go for? Do you go for polyesters or do you go for other content?
So the company that I worked for, they had the color codes that the brand used sort of like built into the system where the department could select which colors they want. So I was wondering if Sean, like you guys didn't search for other, compare brands, because then you have to work with the different, which colors are going to match up across brands, and that's going to complicate things. So I think that was the way that they sort of just decided to simplify the options, because there are so many different like gold colors, and when people are trying to choose things and order things online, that
makes total sense. Like because when I think about like when I order specialty trims from like a specific factory, they always send me their color card, because it's like that's their color standard. They don't change it. It's like whatever their quality or their composition is, it's like exactly that. And versus me even sending a Pantone, they're like, nope, we don't match Pantones. Look from our card.
Right.
Okay, let's look back at Caroline. You were going to talk DuPont, not Nomex DuPont metal.
Yeah, I have. So I don't have an example, I don't have a garment to show, but I at the uniform company where I worked, this was a special flame resistant thread that we would use, and it was much more kind of fuzzy, woolly looking like this. But it has interesting properties, whereas most polyester threads can be subject to melting during production. These have special coatings that allow it to resist super high heat situations. So it's good for firefighting and different, intense situations that kind of in the uniform space. So
that is something that I never would have thought of. Like it never would have occurred to me. Granted, that's not my niche, so like I have no reason to think about that. But that's super interesting because, yeah, if you build a garment and you use the wrong thread and you were in a high heat environment, then your garment just falls apart. Like that's crazy. Question: what is that book you have?
This I got this for free at Sourcing at Magic, and so I just picked this up from this brand at their table.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's a great resource.
Yeah, and so here it's showing like the text number, and it also, this is another measurement system of threads, but I think the text one is better and it's more standardized across the world.
And that's a really great looking book.
Yeah, I know. They were handing them out. So
nice.
Sourcing at Magic in New York City. Good.
Okay, Bethany says we use Tex 45 bonded polyester on our Juki double needle. It quickly builds up a residue under the needle plate in the feed dog, etc. Is that normal?
Yes. So all thread always has some type of lubricant put on it. Depending on the brand, some put more lubricant than others. And some people even rewind thread and add more lubricant or wax to it. And that's just the lubricant kind of shearing off as it goes through the fabric, as it goes through the eye of the needle. One thing you may want to do is play around with your tension there to dial off the tension or even jump up in size with the needle. And that may reduce it a little bit.
So main advice there is maybe to switch the thread over anything else because the residue is probably what's causing.
Yes.
All right. Caroline, do you want to pop through your next like 3 or 4 topics, and then we'll let Sean actually do his introduction? Even though you've been chatting, we'll let you tell us about you. No, that's not your fault. That's me. I should have just had you both introduce yourself at the beginning.
Okay. This is a nylon thread that is for I purchased it to use for shoemaking and working with leather. But I had a client recently who has a lingerie brand, and she was calling out that she needed a specific nylon thread for a certain style. And so I was just thinking about how important it is to communicate with the specifics about the thread, because this type of nylon thread would not be appropriate for lingerie at all. But it is the same fiber content. So just
weird question. I don't know if you can answer this, but like, what would happen if you used that thread on lingerie? Like, would it just be like really stiff and like uncomfortable?
So Sean was mentioning the needle size for that other thread situation. I think the needle size that's going to work for like a lingerie trim and a like a lace material that has a lot of negative space, and a needle that can accept this weight of thread is going to be, they're going to be working against each other, and like I'm envisioning it like chewing each other up.
Makes total sense. I can picture that in my head.
It would be like a hole puncher going through a very lightweight fabric. You gotta see more negative space with that needle, just
even more. Yeah.
The next one was, I think, silk thread, maybe?
Yeah, this is a chiffon top that I was working on. This is not a sample. I can show it because it's wasn't a client-facing project. It's just another project I was working on. But I didn't have silk thread in this color. I only had it in this color that I used on the inside. So I was just noticing, working within this one garment, how differently the silk thread behaves with this delicate material versus I was just using a polyester thread to match the color of this. So this silk thread is much more like gentle on the material. If I had to take out a mistake, it was not leaving behind mark like as much as the thread for the color. That was just something, within one garment, I was like, oh, this really does make a difference that I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like, there's so many things here that I've just never thought about. Like, I can sew. I have a sewing machine, but like nobody really taught me ever how to use it. Like, I just kind of figured it out. And so there's so many nuances here that like I just never looked into, didn't even know to look for.
Lots of good details that can improve a product, and
yeah, like really affects like the outcome, right?
Definitely.
I saw Crystal asked, did you use the same needle, just different thread on that blouse?
I did use the same needle. Mm-hmm. A nice, fresh, sharp one. Smaller
Any
size.
guidance for thread use on a mini sequin?
On sequins?
Yeah, Crystal,
yes, I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were talking, but I was just thinking, I literally just kind of stopped a project I'm working on because I had the bright idea to put like sequin stripes on, like I'm doing like a varsity type look on a sweater I'm doing.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know what kind of needle to use, and I keep getting the thread wrong, and I would like to finish it at some point.
Yeah.
So what's the base garment? It's a sweater, like a knit?
Yeah. I don't want to take up time on this call. That's not what this is about. But it's like a cable knit sweater material, and I have like a mini rose gold sequin that I wanted to do like sleeve stripes. And I just keep breaking needles. I've tried several different kinds, and I'm wondering what I might be doing wrong. Like, what would Caroline do in this situation?
Ooh, I would probably start with a swatch and like test. It sounds like you were testing them, but I would like line them up and write down exactly what I did on each one and the tension that I use, the needle size, the thread, and try to change one factor at a time.
Okay.
And sort of, try to dial in changing one factor at a time to determine which one is worsening or helping the effect.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
What would you do, Sean?
It's been a while since I've done an applique like that, but if I remember correctly, I used like a monofilament. So it was, a single strand of thread. It almost looked like fishing line, really thin, just so the sequin would pop and not the thread itself.
Yes, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, that's the one thing I haven't tried.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
okay.
And, like Caroline said, is the needle breaking because of the sequin or is it because of the thread? Okay, it's because of the sequin. Probably go with a sharp point needle and hopefully, pierce through that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's, one variable change at a time.
Gotcha. I'm definitely going to try that monofilament thread though. I think that might be a big factor. Thank you.
Great idea.
All right. Caroline, let's let you finish. Christina, I saw your question. We'll come back to that in a little bit. I want to keep us rolling, and I know Sean has some really great content he wants to share with us too. So I want to get through that, and then we'll come back to questions. Don't stop putting them in the chat though. We'll definitely come back there.
So do I have time for a little bit more, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I have this jar here of all these empty spools of thread that I used when I worked at the uniform company. I just think it's interesting to think about how the thread is wrapped onto these is going to affect the way that it's going to sew. So these have like a nice texture on them, but even the consistency within this brand, this one I marked it with a Sharpie because it was only working well to let me wind bobbins with it. So I wanted to set it aside because it kept breaking when I was sewing it with my top thread. Maybe is more of a reflection on this brand, but there can be inconsistencies within the brand as well. And also depending on if the thread is coming on a cone like this or a spool like this, it's going to affect how it's going to work in the machine. So I have this machine here, and it needs to use cones, not spools. So I tried to get it to work with thread like this. It's not going to function properly. It's got to come off of this. So even down to the foundation of where the thread is coming off of is going to affect the sewing.
I just read something today that was like the technical difference between a cross wound and a horizontally wound spool. And I was like, also didn't know that was a thing. So like very much what you're just saying.
Yeah, so you can see how the thread is like crisscrossing on this, the way that this is wound, where this one, it's horizontal.
Yeah, my entire life I thought that was just like a design choice. Like people were just like, this looks prettier, we're gonna cross wind it. No, there's like a reason for it.
Well, and like this nylon thread has to have this little foot at the bottom because it's slippery. It would slide off. You can't wind it and have this scape. It won't.
Interesting.
It won't do.
All of the little things. Like, okay, has anyone ever heard of or listened to the podcast 99% Invisible?
Ooh, it sounds good.
Okay, so it literally is about like the things that we don't pay attention to or don't see anymore. Like they're 99% invisible because they're just like part of our world and we just don't think about it. It just is. And like I feel like those things are totally like 99% invisible.
Yes, yes.
I have no idea if that podcast is still running, but if it is, I highly recommend. Even the reruns are great. Anyway, sorry, Caroline, continue.
I think that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave you up in case you want to riff with Sean at all. Sean, please tell us about you. Thank you both so much for coming again. I really, really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. So I'm Sean Burke. I work at Henderson Machinery. I was hired as a equipment salesperson, but I'm the business development manager. I do more than sell equipment. I do a lot of process engineering for factories, product development, and also a lot of educational videos. I will flood your LinkedIn feed with those if you let me. But
Good stuff.
yeah, so I have my background's mostly in knitwear, and with that, knitting sweaters, cutting and sewing of knitwear, and I have a good background on yarn twisting and winding too. So I know a lot about that. Like Caroline said, some of those threads do have a tendency to slide off itself. What I've noticed and what a lot of people do out in the factory, they'll keep a plastic bag over some of the thread so it doesn't fall in on itself. I've also seen people put them in buckets of rice so they don't fall in on themselves. But that creates a whole nother issue with other things going on. A lot of tension gets added to the thread while sewing. But kind of going back to your question, Courtney, on what happened if you were to use that nylon with the lingerie and not the correct nylon per se. And I have a video showing that if I can.
Nice. Yeah, please.
Let's see. Okay, is that working?
Yeah, we can see it, but it's not currently playing. It doesn't look like.
Okay, there we go.
Is there sound?
Yeah, I can just mute it.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know if anyone else can hear it, but I don't hear anything.
Okay. So right here we have your standard sewing thread that most people think of. So that's a coarse spun cotton poly blend. This red is a multi-filament. So it's soft, it's got a little bit of stretch. The next one up is a polyester. It's air texturized. So it gives you that fluff thread look. The aqua is a micro denier, so there's more filaments in there and also air texturized. And then this white one that looks crazy is actually a yarn, but it's a high bulk air entangled yarn. You'll kind of see that, there's not a whole lot of stretch and elongation on that coarse spun. But once you get to the multi-filament stuff, it stretches a little bit, but once you relax it, it bulks up. And for knitwear, that's exactly what you want to see. And this white thread is some of Champion's thread. And I believe that was Champ Lock polyester. But all of these with the multi-filaments, a lot of people avoid because they are very hard to thread through a needle. Just because they fluff up and there's no tension there. And this high bulk stretches a lot and then recovers a lot too.
Yeah, I think I actually found you based on a video about seamless.
Yes. So I do a lot of seamless samples. Seamless apparel, for anyone that doesn't know, it's knit down on a circular knitting machine. You knit to shape, you can do different structures. So a lot of your leggings, your sports bras are knit on a seamless knitting machine. That doesn't mean that there's no sewing involved. You still need to cut out a lot of waste. You need to put on binding. And when it comes to compression wear or athletic apparel like that, you want to make sure that your neck and your armhole stretches with the body, or you're just going to start popping seams. And no one likes that. Another example with that high bulk versus just a standard, a standard thread. So your black is your coarse spun, that white was that crazy high bulk, and you can see it just covers up more. It's a softer thread up against the skin.
Someone asked if, Crystal, are these stretchier threads pretty easy to get your hands on for home sewing?
The A&E stuff would be under the name Wildcat Plus, or something called Best Stretch by A&E. Coats would be Soft Seam is their brand name for it. So I believe you can get those on Amazon.
When you were showing us those two seams, you and I had previously talked about this. So you were talking about like air texturizing and air jet texturizing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So you are running multiple ends of yarn together in a winder, and it goes over a ceramic piece that encloses the multiple ends, and a blast of air is literally tangling the yarns and fibers together. And depending on how much air you push out and how periodically, the increment of the dwell time is there, that's how much entanglement you get. So there's a lot of science behind it. And so each thread brand and each yarn supplier has their own secret recipe of what they think is ideal. And until you start using, thousands of miles of this stuff, you don't really realize, what the big difference is.
So is more entanglement good, or is that part of the secret sauce question?
It really all depends on the attributes you want. It may be great for a top and bottom cover stitch. It may be great for an overlock, but it's absolutely terrible for a flat seam, which is 4 needles and 6 threads. So you're kind of mixing and matching a lot of the times and trying to figure out which is the best for your application.
I always forget about like those really fluffy threads. Like I don't think of those when I think of thread, but they totally have a specific use case.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And like I said, a lot of people avoid them because they are so painfully hard to thread up a needle with.
Do they break easy?
No, they have a lot of stretch to them, but when you're trying to thread it through a needle, they just kind of puff out. So you have to tie on a lead thread or use a threader to go that way.
That makes sense. Do you have any insight on the whole like cross wound versus the horizontally wound spool conversation?
Yes. So I sell winding equipment for yarn and thread. So the cross wound is you have a patterned ceramic drum. The thread moves along the groove back and forth, back and forth. The tension kind of gets inconsistent when it's right at the core, the plastic core, cardboard core. And as it gets bigger, the tension gets a little bit softer. With the traverse, which is the horizontal, that's way more consistent because you're going back and forth and almost stacking the thread and yarn on top of each other.
So with the differences in tension, then like how does that affect the garment?
If the seam is short, it's not going to affect it that much. But if you start doing what I've noticed it a lot was when I was doing belt loops. So I'd have a long roll of fabric I'd feed into a folder and I'd sew it. And so I'd use about half a spool of thread, and you start seeing it, the first half it looks consistent, and then you start getting a tighter stitch your second half because the tension of the thread changes. So you would have to adjust the tension coming into the machine that way.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to pop into some of the questions that came in early, unless there's anything either one of you want to still talk about.
No, I'm looking at everything here. I think that's it.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off. I don't think either one of you maybe have this specific task, but in talking about tech packs, how do you feel like thread color, weight, and placement should be specified? And if you don't have an answer, that's okay. We can just talk about it as a group.
Caroline?
I think the best way is to use the text number measuring system. So like here, the thread supplier is going to tell you what that is. And there's an international system that, I don't have it. International standardization system that is like brands can come under, and so that way it is trying to be the most like the same unit across the world. So that way, whoever is going to see this tech pack, whether your pattern maker is in the US and then you're going to produce in Bangladesh, that it should be the best way to communicate and make sure that everyone understands what is required.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. Like for me personally, when I'm working with a client, like I always get really bummed out when they just want to stop like at just the tech pack stage and I never get to talk to their manufacturer. Because I'm always like, man, I would love to just one email to them and be like, hey, how do you like your colors called out? Is like Pantone okay? Or do you need like coded colors because that's all you have? And like I need to like translate them, or like, yeah, can we use text codes or numbers? Like, is that okay? Or do you use a different system? Like, and I feel like just those questions, like getting them right, like taken care of right off the bat, can solve so many future issues or like questions on the back end and like wasted time. But anyways, that's just me.
Those are great points. Yes.
I think another thing, definitely go by the text size, but if you have a color card like Caroline has, where it should show all the colors and the company's code for color, if you can go by that, that makes it so much easier to communicate and spec it out on tech pack.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody asked, is there a perfect thread for a t-shirt to make a buttery soft but also durable, and does that combination exist?
Yes. The Champion, the Soft Stitch, the A&E Wildcat Plus, those are all great. Kind of the Wildcat Plus is the standard for a lot of t-shirts, but you're going to have an issue with threading up. It fluffs out. It's really soft, and it takes a lot of adjustment on the machine side to get that dialed in.
So I think like the moral to the story that I'm hearing today is that like there's so many factors, and it's not just thread choice. It's tension. It's the spool method. It's when you're at the beginning or the end of the spool. Like so many different things.
And most t-shirts are going to be sewn with more than one type of sewing machine. So there's going to be potentially multiple different machines that need to be rethreaded if that's the thread you're going to choose, or a combination.
Do you guys think, just like personally, if I'm going to a factory that is like a specialist in a specific type of garment, like let's just stick on t-shirts, like I'm going to a factory that like only makes t-shirts, should I be telling them what threads to use, or should I be asking them what threads they use?
I would ask them and kind of see what they normally use, and if what they say kind of aligns with what you were going to specify in the tech pack, I'd stick with it. If it sounds like it's completely off, like they're using a really heavy thread, they're not using the right machines, I would say, hey, would you be open to try this, and just kind of play it by ear and kind of walk very lightly on that.
That makes sense. Can we talk about the differences between an S twist and a Z twist and why it matters?
So I sell twisting equipment, so I have experience with that, but I haven't really seen a big difference when it comes to sewing. I will see it when it comes to knitting. S would be, counterclockwise, Z would be clockwise twist. And if you look at this sock, you see the wales are running diagonally. And that means the machine is running in the same direction that the yarn is twisted. So you get this weird cork effect to it. And you can also see that S or Z when you relax the thread itself. This is a lot of twist, and that happens. So when you do that when sewing, you're going to snag, it's going to break through the tensioner, it's going to get locked up right at the eye of the needle. So adjusting the tension properly and eliminating the empty space between one thread guide to the next helps out a lot too.
So you said something that really made me think. So like the torquing conversation. So the thread is twisting in the same way that the machine is knitting.
Yes.
So like you kind of want to do the opposite so that you're like canceling each other out.
Yes. So easy example is rope. If you were to go to the hardware store, you see those big strands that are twisted together, and you cut them, they don't unravel on each other because the individual strands are S twist and then compound together in a Z twist. So it kind of locks it all in together.
That is brilliant. It makes perfect sense.
And just a side note, if you are having that type of torquing issue, you could take some steam, a steam iron, to the package of thread and kind of relax it a little bit that way. It's not going to be end all fix, but it's going to alleviate some of the twisting and torquing issue.
Good tip. Good practical tips. So question was, how do factories manage tension on thread to avoid them twisting back on itself? So this is like literally what you just answered. So we don't actually have to go over that. Okay, so then there's been a couple questions about cost. So wanting to learn about how thread choice relates to unit cost, basically like good, better, best as far as thread choices. And then does thread choice affect price that drastically at the end stage? I don't know if either one of you feel like you can truly answer that since you're not really like garment manufacturers. But there was also another question about being able to estimate thread use or cost for products and basically just like kind of being able to figure out for yourself maybe how much thread you might be used in a garment.
So for thread consumption, I've done this a lot for other people and some of the factories that I worked at. I would just take a piece of fabric and I would sew, about 6 inches of a seam, and then I will mark it 1 inch and then manually remove all the threads that way and measure it. And you are going to be amazed at how much thread you consume in 1 sewn inch. So, for example, a 4 needle, 6 thread flat seamer, which is what you see on a lot of your lingerie and leggings, activewear stuff, 1 inch is about 38 inches worth of thread consumed. So it adds up very, very fast.
That's crazy. I never would have thought of that. And I also like the figuring it out for yourself suggestion. Like that's, again, these things that you just like never would have thought of. We're getting down to like a few of the last questions, but we're also getting down to the wire. So are you both okay to stay for like another 5-10 minutes?
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. Great. Christina asked earlier, how important is matching substrates? Like for garment dye projects, matching cotton thread to cotton garment makes sense, but is it best practice to use silk thread for a silk fabric?
I was looking at some denim brands just as I was thinking about today, because I noticed that some of these salvage denim brands, they actually tell the customer what kind of thread they're using because the customer cares about that. They might be calling out that they're using the cotton wrapped polycore thread because it's a durability, but it gives the look of the cotton thread, which is like the heritage look that they're going for. Now, and I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. We're asking about how important is it to match substrates? So like you're saying that you don't have to necessarily have like a cotton thread for the denim.
Right. And so each brand, within the heritage denim space, some of them are choosing the 100% cotton and they're telling that to the customer, and that's something that they care about. And then some other brands are saying, hey, we're using the one with the polycore because we want you to have that extra durability, but the look of the cotton and the way that it takes the dye and wears over time. I also found an activewear brand that was specifically sharing the thread content that they were using, this Swedish activewear brand, and that's the first time I'd seen it where they're specifically telling you, because usually you'll see the fabric content, but usually, or I often don't notice the thread being told to the customer facing area on the website. So I think it is a choice that some brands are going to use as part of a selling point, part of a strategy, part of the whole picture, and then other brands are maybe they can say that their garment is 100% cotton, even if they're using polyester thread, and kind of say that it's going to be biodegradable, even though
The thread
that
maybe isn't.
polyester thread is not going to degrade. So
So overall, like it's kind of a choice, right? So it's like it maybe matters in this use case where she's saying like in garment dyeing, of course you want the thread to dye the same as the garment, but in most other cases it's more about the function or just the design choice, really.
I think it's an important factor in the whole all of the choices that are going to be made as part of the design and what they want to communicate to the customer.
I have a horror story doing garment dyed sweaters, and the first couple samples trying to figure out the shrinkage there was one issue, because cotton shrinks up a lot after it goes through, your dye, hot water, and drying. The first few samples, I sewed them up with polyester thread, and the thread did not shrink, so my arm seam was solid, but the hem on that sweater went like that. So once I switched over to fully 100% cotton thread, it shrank up consistently with the rest of the sweater there. And yeah, that was my mistake, and I learned from it, and I've never done it ever again when it came to garment dyeing.
Christina, did that answer your question? If you're not here anymore, that's, oh no, I see you, you're here. Okay, she said yes, awesome. Bethany asked, double needles, do we use 2 spools wound the same way for both the left and the right needle? The left stitch always looks slightly less perfect. Is it a tension issue or does the wind matter?
No, that's probably the tension issue, and a lot of the times it's a tension issue on the bobbin. So changing the tension on the bobbin, one of those little set screws on the bobbin case itself, if you turn it just maybe 10 degrees, you'll add a little bit more tension, or turn it the other way, you can take off a little bit of tension. But over time, moving parts, stuff gets loosened up, wear and tear. Once you kind of dial those in, they should be fairly consistent. There shouldn't be any visual difference between the type of winding there.
That is all of the comments and questions that I had coming in early and that are so far in the chat. So anyone who wants to ask anything else, feel free to raise your hand, throw something else in the chat. While we're letting people unmute, raise their hand, do whatever. Will you guys just share like a random fact that you think is interesting about thread or machines or anything? I know, put you on the spot.
I worked in a factory that the plant manager never costed out thread, and we were doing a lot of fire retardant apparel, which we had to use FR thread as well, and that stuff is incredibly expensive. I know Caroline knows because she used Nomex before. It is not cheap. You're paying for that technology, and we had to reevaluate the cost and send that over to the customer, and that was a really hard conversation for about 6 of my largest customers, that we had to increase the price quite a bit.
Ooh.
Yeah, all these words to describe the thread, I just see dollar signs for each.
That's true though. The more descriptive words that you add to anything, that's just dollar signs. Nobody has anything? Normally you guys are so chatty.
Allison in the chat, I know Allison, she also said stitches per inch of the seam definitely affects the costing for sure. So she's 100% right. There is no perfect formula to figure out the best number of stitches per inch either. That's really up to you and the customer and what you think is best.
I was just thinking too, like the differences between different types of stitches, sorry, I'm trying to think of how to say this, like a zigzag versus a straight stitch for like something where you're trying to to stretch. But using like that versus like one of your air spun or like super stretchy threads, like, do you feel like one is better over the other, or like would you ever use one of those super stretchy air spun threads with a zigzag stitch?
No, so the air texturized stuff, I tell everyone never put that in a bobbin. Because as the bobbin gets wound up, there's always going to be tension and it stretches out the thread. And that air texturized thread has a tendency to kind of fall into the other grooves of the previous wraps around the bobbin. So when you're pulling it off, you could get really tight spots and the bobbin could break. So the bobbin thread breaks and it's just not an enjoyable sewing experience. That
makes complete sense. I'm glad you brought up that comment from Allison, because I totally missed it in the chat. So thank you for doing that. Christina also had a really good point. She said more words equals more certification requirements too, which is totally true. Do you guys ever have to do like any certification conversations with like your clients, like with the fire retardant or anything else like that?
Normally that falls into the thread manufacturer's, cost there, and of course they pass that along to the customer. But when I was doing FR stuff, there was always like a burn or melt test, and then there was like a arc flash test. So for people working with electricity, linemen, that's a spark or a shock coming across. They want to make sure that it doesn't, melt the thread and in turn just melt onto the wearer. Yeah.
Caroline, do you ever have to have any of those conversations with your clients just about like confirming any certifications or anything like that? Like obviously you're not certifying, but like if they're asking you for something, do you ever have to like kind of go back and supply that?
The client that I was talking about who wants this nylon thread, but I don't have any other details about it other than the thread content. So that is something that I'm asking her to talk with the factory where she got the sample from that had the thread that she liked. So trying to trace that down back and make sure we have the details so that this seam results in the finish that she's looking for. And it's definitely a conversation that I have with my sample making clients. I just am one person, so I don't have every single type and color of thread. So I just try to be upfront with them and say, I'm going to try to match the color reasonably and then match it to the machine that I'm using and then match it to the type of garment. And is it visible? Is it on the inside? Is it top stitching that we want to see? I'm weighing all those different things and communicating that with them so that they, if they need the special color of orange top stitch thread and I only have, this color, is that going to be okay because we're on the first sample and we're looking more at the fit this time, or do we want this to be like in photos for Instagram? So
that makes sense. All right, well, we're 10 minutes over, so I'm going to close it. And nobody else has to raise their hand or put anything else in the chat. So thank you guys again so much for coming. Thank you all the participants for coming as well. Heads up that the next Lunch and Learn is October 27th. It's going to be at a different time because we're working in a different time zone. So look for that at 6 p.m. on the 27th. We're talking to ABC Seams to talk about seams. So it kind of goes with this conversation as well. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Bye.